On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, an ultimate one night alone set, the Rainbow Children, what are we getting? The Purple Spotlight, Like the Boots, and more. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 25 of Amari Purple Talk, a Prince podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist. I want to start by thanking everyone that has tuned in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show where comments are displayed. Please continue to download and listen from your favorite podcast platform. And YouTube listeners, please continue to like and subscribe. Feel free to also visit my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You may also click the links in the show notes to follow me on social media and submit topics or questions for use in future episodes and purchase Amari Purple Talk merchandise. And with that out of the way, let's start with our first topic. And our first topic today is One Night Alone, Rainbow Children rumors. All right, so a UK record store prior to last week, so 2 weeks ago, on their social media posted or teased a vinyl release of the Rainbow Children for March 27th. Now, in the past week, there's also been rumors circulating that in addition to a reissue of the Rainbow Children, there will be a reissue of the One Night Alone Live. That was a box set that was released in 2002. Also, the NPG Music Club only release of the One Night Alone, the what I call the original piano and microphone release, as well as, of course, in addition to the Rainbow Children, and also the One Night Alone live at the Aladdin DVD. Either they'll be released or reissued separately, or they'll be reissued as one big giant box set. So, as of now, there is no official word from the Prince estate regarding these releases. There has been on Amazon where you can pre-order the Rainbow Children, and it has it slated for release on March 27th. So again, there's no official release or information of release by the Prince estate. We are now kind of approaching the middle of February, so that would put us at about roughly about 6 weeks out, if this is going to be an official release. So I believe, hopefully, if this is going to be a real thing, hopefully this week we'll get an official announcement. Because like I said, again, we're 6 weeks out from release, so that should be enough time between the announcement and the official release date. Also, which by that time, Amazon or wherever you purchase vinyl or CDs will officially have everything available on their websites for pre-order if they offer that. So as for me, I noticed a couple of people out in the community, a few of my fellow podcasters have already pre-ordered. I'm going to wait until I hear the official announcement before I pre-order anything, and that's just because we don't know exactly, it's on Amazon, it's available for pre-order, but since there's no official word, then I'm going to take this news as being or that posting on Amazon for pre-order as unofficial until I get the official word for it. So, but it's stirring up a lot of excitement. I know I'm excited, so I'm hoping this is going to be true. I mean, even if it's just the Rainbow Children, I'd be excited to get that on vinyl and to get another CD as well. Also, too, that whole with the Rainbow Children, a lot of that material was on the set list for the One Night Alone tour. That was a different tour. I enjoyed the box set a lot. I didn't have an opportunity to attend any of the shows myself, but I really enjoyed that set list. And I'm sure that people that did attend, there was a lot more than just what was on that CD as well. So, but just as a standalone release, it would be nice to have that entire set. And it's a great idea to bundle it with the Rainbow Children, bundle it with the One Night Alone studio piano microphone release. Let's see, also the Live at Aladdin. That's another good show. I felt it was sort of short, compared to the material that's on the CD box set. But I mean, it's still some great performances. Even a couple of renditions of a few classic songs. I've always also enjoyed his cover of Led Zeppelin's Whole Lot of Love a lot. So I'm looking forward to this, at least getting an official release and rebuilding my collection, filling in some gaps once again. Also, too, to have the opportunity to have some of these classics. And yes, these are two classics. To me, they're more, even though it's almost 20 years now, but as far as, everyone focuses on the classic 80s material, and there was a lot of great stuff in the 90s as well. This particular era is a pretty good gem in that collection of great Prince eras. There's a lot of ebb and flow between eras, but this to me was one of the strongest. It was a different direction. He was trying new things, even live. Everything was a little more stripped down. There were no elaborate costumes. The focus was strictly on the music. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, once again having that. Hopefully having it on vinyl as well. So hopefully we'll hear something this week. And of course, if there is an official announcement, tune in again next Monday and I'll share my thoughts and opinions. Meanwhile, what's most important is, what do you think out there? Is this one of your favorite eras? Are you looking forward to just the Rainbow Children release? Are you looking forward to the entire set of albums being released? Jump in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And we're going to end topic number 1 and move on to topic number 2. And topic 2 is the question of, does a Prince Miles Davis album exist? Okay, so as you know, Miles Davis, his entire collection, or his entire catalog, I should say, is on Sony Music Group, Sony Legacy. And to me, Sony has done a tremendous job handling a lot of their legacy artists, both, living and dead. Miles Davis being one of the pinnacles of reissues, not only reissuing, his official catalog, but the numerous box sets and compilations that have come out over the years. Of course, you've also heard me talk ad nauseum about the Jimi Hendrix releases, especially since they've acquired the license for that material as well. There's also Bob Dylan. To me, Sly and the Family Stone could be handled better, but again, even with what they've released or reissued, has been great to me. I've enjoyed all of those reissues as well. So, but it brings back to the question of, does a Prince Miles Davis collaboration album of sorts exist? And this stems from originally from a 1998 interview in Guitar World magazine. Let's see, double check my notes. Yep, so Guitar World, October of 1988. And in this interview, Prince mentions that there are recordings of long improvised jams with Miles Davis. So it's enough to put out at least a single album. And he kind of reasoned that one day he may release it. And in the interview, he acknowledged that he would either release it around the time of his birthday or the anniversary of his death. So not much has been really spoken about this album since. At the time, for a number of years, there's been a lot of questions. There's an interview with Alan Leeds that was around kind of the early 2000s. If you want to check out the site thelastmiles.com, and if you want to read that interview with Alan Leeds, by all means check it out. It's a really great interview even now, and probably amongst the best Alan Leeds interview. But he kind of downplayed it. It's something that he wasn't aware of, because he was basically Prince's tour manager, as well as help running Paisley Park for a number of years as well. So, and that was during Miles' lifetime and even shortly after Miles passed. So, according to Alan Leeds, if something like that existed, he would have known about it. But then again, I'm sure he wasn't with Prince every single day. Even though he was running Paisley Park, he wasn't there every single day. So apparently, according to Prince, these recordings do exist. There probably are some deep collectors that may, even if they don't have them, may know more about these particular sessions. But it sounds like it's a complete sort of lots of improvisation, which, jazz is primarily built on that foundation. Lots of the best recordings, performances, it's all improvised. That's the beauty of jazz. That's sort of the magic of it, really. And Prince and Miles Davis, they go back all the way to around 1985, where Prince recorded the classic collector track, Can I Play With You, which he submitted to Miles, and Miles played something on it. But in the context of the type of album that Miles was recording at the time, which ended up being the 1987 release of Tutu, it didn't quite fit within that collection of songs. So Prince kind of didn't think it was up to par and withdrew it. But it's definitely a really popular track amongst collectors. And who knows, maybe we'll see it maybe we'll see it pop up on either maybe an Around the World in a Day deluxe or a Parade deluxe set at some point. But I've always enjoyed it as a track. But I've also heard Tutu as well. And yeah, it wouldn't have fit with that particular collection of songs. But, you know, that was sort of the breaking of the ice between these two geniuses. So that, you know, began a long relationship that lasted all the way until Miles's passing. But they've also collaborated on some other things as well. The track Sticky Wicket, that's on Shaka Khan's CK album, that's around 1988. Pretty funky track. You know, Miles is basically Miles. You know, you're going to get something great just about every time. So I always enjoyed that track as well. And then there are songs that were originally going to be part of the original Madhouse 24. I think, you know, the songs 18 and 1920, those were submitted to Miles. And I don't know if he managed to overdub his horn on any of it or was going to use it for a future album. But there, like I said, in researching this, in people being interviewed about Miles Davis, and especially Miles Davis's obsession with Prince, Easy Mo B, probably one of the unsung producers of hip hop in the early and mid 90s, got to produce some of the tracks on Miles's last album, Bebop. And he was given a couple of songs which he was told were from the vault. Now, he wasn't given all of the, I guess, Prince recorded tracks, so to speak, but they isolated Miles's horn for him to use to kind of overdub his beats and sounds on top of that. So there's speculation that there's some tracks on Miles's last album that originally had life as Prince songs. There's also footage of Miles performing some of that Madhouse material that was submitted to him live. Go seek that out on YouTube and check that out. But I would be very interested in hearing the, you know, long improvised jams that Prince says exist. And, you know, by Sony having the license. Now, as far as any vault material, a lot of that in the fine print is still sort of tied up with Warner Brothers right now. And that will be transferred over to Sony in 2021. So around after 2021, you know, I'm sure we'll start to get Prince get that same treatment as the Miles Davis box sets and everything, Bob Dylan's catalog, you name it. So, but we'd have to wait till 2021. Meanwhile, what we've been getting from Warner Brothers as far as the classic 80s material thus far, we'll have to continue to enjoy that until 2021. So, but again, this is a collaboration that, if it does exist, you know, like I said, Sony already has the Miles Davis masters, so it wouldn't be a problem to release it. They already have Prince's masters, or the estate owns the masters. Sony has the license from everything from 1995 to 2015 or so, or whenever Prince's last officially released album. But they'll gain the license to distribute and manufacture and release classic Prince material in 2021. And that would also include majority of the album, or majority of tracks that are in the vault. So it'll take some time, but that would probably be one thing I would like to see released at some point down the road. Would be a Prince and Miles Davis collaboration. What's most important is, what do you think about that type of an album being released? Would you like to hear more things from Miles Davis? Are there, I may have to look this up, but there may be some posthumous live recordings that may already have some of these tracks on it. So, not the stuff that Prince was talking about per se, but the Madhouse songs that were submitted to Miles that he's heard and obviously rehearsed with his band and has performed live too. So I don't know. I might have to look into that as well. But again, what do you guys think? Do you want a Miles Davis Prince unreleased album released, or are there things that already exist that's out there that Prince and Miles Davis have done together that should also be reissued or put together in a compilation of sorts? Or should it all be one big package, like a single CD or 2 CD item? Leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And now we're going to end topic 2 and move on to topic 3. And basically topic 3 are just the poll results from 2 weeks ago. We've had actually from last week, where I submitted the question that should the Truth album be released as a standalone release, or do you think that it should just stay with Crystal Ball? Now, if we flash back to 1998 or so, and where the internet was, where Prince was at that time, he was pretty much ahead of his time. Him and David Bowie in regards to the internet and alternative ways to distribute music beyond what we were used to at that time, which were CDs and cassettes, and vinyl was only a memory to most of us. So it made sense. Now, I think that The Truth was originally intended as a standalone release. But, of course, as history has shown, it ended up being part of a bonus sort of CD to go along with the release of The Rainbow Children, which at that time Prince was pretty big on, trying to give you more bang for your buck as far as, with like Emancipation, where he wanted the pricing of that to be equivalent to 2 CDs. So that way, we actually got 3 CDs for the price of 2 when purchasing Emancipation. And pretty much the same thing with Crystal Ball. So it's like you bought 3 CDs, but if you bought it in retail stores, like I did, then you got just The Truth as a bonus. But if you ordered from 1-800-NEW-FUNK, then you got the 5th bonus disc, which was the Kama Sutra disc. But now here we are in 2019, and we have streaming. So basically, if you wanted to listen to The Truth by itself, you can go on Tidal and listen to it. You're not dependent on Crystal Ball for that anymore. Same thing if you go to iTunes or purchase from Amazon Music. Then you can just purchase The Truth by itself. You're not dependent on Crystal Ball. If you buy Crystal Ball, you're getting Crystal Ball. You're not going to get The Truth anymore. So basically, like I said, we put this poll across over a week ago. And these are the final results. And where we have it, we have The Truth as the winner at 53% as a standalone CD or vinyl. And this is out of 180 votes. So 53% as a standalone CD or vinyl. And then 47% of you say keep it with Crystal Ball. Okay. Which I understand. Like I said, if we kind of go back to 1998, which I'm assuming most of the 47% that say keep it with Crystal Ball were around in 1998 and have fond memories of either going to the store and purchasing or calling up 1-800-NEW-FUNK and at some point getting your Crystal Ball CD in the mail. And that was great, because like I said, that was uncharted territory for that time. And for most of us that were around then, yeah, it was exciting, because he's now free of the record companies. Nobody can tell him what to release or what not to release, what to give away, what not to give away. But now, here we are in 2019. And again, like I said, if you buy digitally Crystal Ball, you're not going to get the truth as a bonus digital anything. You're still going to have to pay money for the truth. And if you buy the truth, you're not going to get Crystal Ball bundled with it either. So I think now if you did re-release or reissue Crystal Ball, I believe it would just be as that standalone set. And, Sony in 2019, licensing deal or no licensing deal, they're not going to say, hey, here's here's 3 discs and here's a bonus disc. Prince had to push hard to, even back with Warner Brothers, back with the release of 1999, that was a 2-album set. And even in those days, to buy a 2 LP set was pretty, pricey, for how economics were back then. So for him to specially price or ask Warner Brothers to specially price 1999 at that time, that was huge. And, even then he was thinking about the consumer. And to even, 15, 20 years later with Emancipation, to ask the distributors to specially price this thing to where it's 2 for. So, he's no longer around to sort of fight for that. And I'm not sure, I'm sure at this particular stage, because there's still so much tax debt to offset, I don't think, any special pricing. Let's take the 1999 Super Deluxe, for what we paid for it. I'm sure we paid for all the discs plus the DVD with that. And granted, mind you, manufacturing costs really aren't that steep. Really. I think it's probably more the special packaging we got for it probably costs more than the manufacture of the actual CDs or the pressing of the CDs as well as the DVDs. So, Warner Brothers and hopefully at some point the estate is getting that large chunk of money, from charging, whether it was, $45, $50 or whatever. But what I do believe is that anything that's being reissued now, the goal is not only for the record companies to make money and get a return on their investment because, I'm sure they paid a pretty big, healthy amount up front for the licensing agreement. So they're going to want to make their money back. And any profits, of course, the estate wants to get a hold of that as well. So like I said, they can offset that tax debt and then start at some point down the road enjoying the benefits of profits from Prince releases from here on out. And they're only going to get bigger and better from here. Like I said, starting with originals, to me, that's when they were on the right track. And, on the Sony side of things, the reissues, of course, they're going to hit the ground running with those. And to those people out there that have everything, just get over it. Because there's people that weren't alive in the 80s. There are people that weren't alive in the 90s. And probably people that weren't even alive 10 years ago that are just now discovering Prince. And of course, there's always the obvious. You go through the hits or you buy the greatest hits. And if you want to go deeper, then at some point, eventually there's going to be so much to pick and choose from. And they're going to discover their own favorite eras of it. So just because you have everything, good for you. Good for you. But again, there's people that weren't around to collect everything or weren't even on the planet yet. But, just like myself, I was 10 years old in 1976, 6 years after the Beatles broke up. And my gateway was a 2-album compilation that the Fab Four, and they were all still alive at that time, did not endorse. But the TV commercial grabbed me as a 10-year-old and got me into the Beatles. And I did my own deep dive on my own through, seeing certain books and getting a hold of certain books and reading more about their history, actually seeing what their catalog is, and eventually over the years acquiring that catalog. Now, by this time, talking like from 12 to early 20s, by the time I really got a hold of everything that the Beatles had recorded, whether it was on vinyl or eventually CD. So now you're talking 15 to 20 years after they were no longer a group. So, that's the joy of it. That's the joy of discovering music. And I'm sure a lot of you, and it may not necessarily have been with Prince, especially if you have everything. So I'm assuming that most of you collected this in real time. But I'm sure there's an artist, or if you're a general music fan, so let's even go with another genre, like jazz or something. I'm sure that you weren't around when Duke Ellington was around, and you discovered Duke Ellington 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years after he's passed. And I'm quite sure that somebody that had every single note that Duke Ellington ever recorded ever looked at you sideways, because, hey, you wanted to go to the store and buy that one Duke Ellington album that you just didn't have in your collection. And speaking of that, whether a person was around during that era and had amassed a major collection, sometimes things get lost. Sometimes you have the wrong person in your house and all of a sudden you're one Prince album short, or you brought some records to a party and everything got lost in the shuffle, and then you went home and realized something's missing. Or there's some people out there, you don't know what their life situation was, and maybe had to sell off some collectibles here and there, Prince items among them, just to survive until they're abundant again. And now that they're abundant, to go back and rebuild portions of their collection, but again, the record company, and along with the estate, wants to resell these things so they can get their money. And at the same time, the benefit is that, again, there's newer generations that'll come along even in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I mean, heck, the Beatles only had so many albums when they were together, but you repackage a certain collection of songs or re-release the albums, like let's see, the Abbey Road just had their 50th anniversary. That release ended up number 3. It was in the top 5 both in the UK and here in the US, and that wasn't all old people buying it. That's people that, again, weren't even born in the 60s, weren't even born in the 70s, mind you, weren't even born in the 80s, barely, maybe born in the 90s, or maybe even born in the year 2000 and up. But again, that's the joy of discovering music. Old, new, old, young, whatever. That's the beauty of it. So, again, if you got everything, good for you. Don't complain about it. If you just holding out for, open the vault and let everything come out, let me remind you again. And if you've listened to this show, again, you've heard me talk ad nauseum about it. When Jimi Hendrix passed, the posthumous releases from his vault, for the most part, especially from the people that were there, it sucked. Now, to the fans that bought, say, Cry of Love, and I forget the other one that was out then, that's the fans, and they haven't heard it. They thought they were getting something authentic, and we're not going to take away what that particular release meant to them at that time, because again, it's someone discovering something that has made that person a fan for life. And the reason why these releases were getting worse and worse and worse is because Jimi Hendrix's father, who became heir and executor of the estate in the early 70s, signed his rights away to this one company. And it took about 20 years for him to get it back. So with the help of his daughter, they were able to get the control of the masters back. And since 1986, they had been releasing quality material, even some bootleg material. They even got a separate label for that, for the real diehards. So, stuff that's like the quality isn't quite up to snuff, but it's just that one piece of recording that exists that you just couldn't get anywhere else. It wasn't recorded by Jimmy per se, but someone had this recording and, it encapsulated that moment in history. So there's even a label they have for that. But the point is, it took 20 years. And that's a pretty long time to wait just for the, not only the official quality remastered official albums, but then immediately after that, I think the first compilation was the first rays of the new rising sun. To wait 20 years for that to be heard is as close to Jimmy's intentions as they could possibly get. And a lot of the material they've been releasing, DVDs and live recordings, things like that. So from 1996 to 2019, there's been quality material. And with Prince, you'll get to that stage with that. But, again, don't cheapen it, or, don't make somebody feel bad because, they may be new to the Prince musical singularity. This show here is for everybody. People that have, that were around in the 80s like me, and people that are fans of whatever era, at whatever age, whatever background, whatever part of the world that you live in. That's what this show is for. That's what some of the other podcast shows that are out there, the ones that most of them, they do it better than this one, but we all either share the same thoughts and opinions, or we have a different take on certain things, but our shows are for everyone. So don't cheapen it for, like I said, penalizing somebody because they're just discovering something. Because like I said, I'm sure there's an artist that definitely wasn't around when you were around that you're discovering or still discovering new things. And nobody's looking at you, because they already have everything. But anyway, that's my rant. Back to the truth. So for me, I would like to see that as a standalone release myself. And just listening to it again recently, I mean, God, there's albums, there's songs that, even if they're 20 or 50 years old, they still have relevance. Like Imagine still has relevance. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On has way too much relevance even today. There's still stuff that just goes on. And there's not enough songs now that sort of speak to what's going on right now, that stands up to it. An artist's job is basically to hold the mirror to society and in our own way. Because other than that, if we weren't artists, then we'd be politicians. If we could articulate it the way a politician would, well, sometimes we don't even want to articulate it the way a politician would because it's just regurgitating stuff time and time again. But to hold that mirror to society, to kind of say it or express it in a way that moves people. Because sometimes, again, a lot of these cats, they don't reach you because they're not really trying to reach you. They're just trying to get your vote. But if you really want to affect change, like let's take the whole Motown era, it kind of goes beyond just pop songs, or it goes beyond love songs, because those songs captured the feelings of people, black and white. And in a lot of cases, literally helped bring them together. So, an album like The Truth, again, some of the lyrics, the title track itself, even though Don't Play Me is a little personal, sometimes that has relevance in our own lives as well, because we could be dealing with people or situations, or people have a certain picture or an idea of you, and because of that certain idea or picture, may want to manipulate or maneuver you or try to take advantage of you or take you for granted or whatever. And a song like that, yeah, it's empowering, because it's like, here's somebody that's one of the greatest artists of all time, and that's what they're thinking and feeling as well. So, and just in addition to that, just beautiful songs, period. Again, Circle of Amore, Animal Kingdom, Come Back, and Fascination. That's a song that, I've forgotten how much I enjoyed that track. So, it's a really enjoyable album, beginning to end. There's not really any filler to it. To me, it would have, had it been released as a standalone, I think it really would have ended up being one of another, we already think it's a classic, but in the minds of, say, the mainstream or the critics, this is an artist flexing his muscles. It's like, okay, well, me for the Purple Rain and Kiss and When Doves Cry, but, I'm an artist, and, I can get down acoustically as well, or I'm still capable of making strong albums. So, to me, I think this as a standalone release would get a tremendous breath of fresh air as a standalone. Like I said, again, the critics will eat it up and enjoy it, I believe. And two, again, for people that are trying to go beyond the hits, this is something that they can sink their teeth into. Now, again, like I said, it's available to listen to on all of the streaming services. So by all means, check it out, give it a listen, spread the word about this one. But like I said, as far as officially being released, I would be glad to see this pop up. And I'm sure later this year, this may be one of the trio of releases, or next set of releases that will come out. So hopefully anyone with the ear of the estate, definitely keep this one in mind. All right. But what's most important is, what do you think? Now, do you agree with the poll results? Again, it was a close one at first, but the standalone CD release, it was gaining momentum, and still get comments about it, still requesting it as a standalone. One or two still saying keep it with Crystal Ball, but I understand the nostalgia aspect of it, but for me personally, I would rather see this get legs of its own and get a second life on its own as well. Because I think this is one of his most important recordings to me, and that stands up even with a lot of the classic material. And especially coming off the heels of Emancipation, this is definitely, again, like another strong album for him. So, but again, what do you guys think? Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. And that's going to end our topics for today. And then we're going to move on to our purple. Our purple spotlight. And our purple spotlight, it's a segment that highlights a Prince album, film or video, or an associated artist. And today's purple spotlight is on The Family. All right. And now The Family is what I affectionately, jokingly call my other favorite band. Because basically it was splintered off from the time, after Morris Day left, after Jesse Johnson left, of course, Monty Moore left before the both of them. Jimmy and Terry were already fired. But basically, the time was rendered non-existent by the middle of 1984. So, which left a really big hole for me, because I enjoyed the Ice Cream Castles album. To me, What Time Is It is probably the strongest Time album for me, but I enjoyed Ice Cream Castles, but it was also like it was the end. It was sort of like, to me, that's their Let It Be album, just in terms of, okay, there's these songs and, well, we're just going to put them out because we got to, because there's a movie, but this is it. This is actually it, the end of the time. So it kind of left this big hole for me, because it was like I went from them being my favorite band to no longer having a favorite band in existence anymore. So fast forward to around 1985, and here we have The Family. So basically after Morris left, after Jesse left, Prince just decided, hey, I'm going to put St. Paul Peterson in charge, or we're not in charge, but he's going to be the lead singer. Okay, I'm going to draft Susanna Melvoin. She's going to be in the band. Okay, and I've got Jelly Bean and Jerome that's left. So I'm going to put together a band, and with St. Paul, and in Prince's words, we're going to go get some of that Duran Duran money. Because, Duran, they were sort of the biggest. They were sort of the Beatles of the 80s, really. Or kind of like, now I kind of look at them as Beatles / Rolling Stones of the 80s. Because they're still, for the most part, most of them are still together. They still tour. They still record. But in, 82, 83, 84, 85, even into 86, Notorious, which is my favorite Duran Duran album. They could have done no wrong in the eyes of their fans at that time. And they were really big. They were bigger than any group that was coming out of England. Even bigger than, I'd say, probably even bigger than Wham, too. And bigger than Culture Club. Not to say that they weren't big, but they had the look, they had the image, they had the videos. Even before Michael Jackson with Billie Jean, they had the videos and couldn't be stopped. So basically, this was Prince trying to capitalize on that. And here you had St. Paul, very soulful, blue-eyed soul type singer. You could have them be funky. You can kind of have them go into kind of that Duran Duran territory, like Bobby Z's River Run Dry that's on the Family album. That type of track could have competed with, the Duran Durans or the Eurythmics of that era. But like I said, and of course, don't forget the man with the saxophone, Eric Leeds. like I said, bringing some of that funk, some of that jazz flavor in there. And there's a lot. There's even a little touch of reggae with Desire on there that I like too. So when this album was released, then at that point they became my other favorite band. And sadly, it only lasted just that one album. But I mean, I literally wore the grooves off of that. I mean, to a lot of people, you've heard a lot of people say this, that it's the best Prince album not done by Prince. But of course, the tracks are his. He played, of course, just about everything except for saxophone. And now we're starting to see bubbling to the surface a lot of the tracks with Prince's original vocals on them. Most notably was Nothing Compares to You, that was released by the estate, both as a single and which is on the Originals compilation that was released last year. So that, and even though it was on the Family album, a lot of the instruments were stripped down, and you had St. Paul and Susanna's vocals on that track. The Prince version has the full instrumentation and Prince's vocals that are on it. And also circulating as well are original Prince vocals on High Fashion. Just the entire album, if you seek it out, you'll find all the original tracks with his voice and slightly different mixing, because the final official Family album, not a lot of bass that's on it. A lot of that was kind of stripped down or buried in the mix, much to the chagrin of Eric Leeds, because according to him, especially the funkier tracks are even funkier with the bass. So if you kind of go seek out those original tracks, you'll hear it. So, but it's, definitely one of my favorite Prince side projects. And again, this was where, even on that side of things, he was firing on all cylinders, because, I mean, you had 3 outstanding albums by the time. By 1984, well, probably even before then, you had Vanity 6, which by 1984, you had Apollonia 6, which had a lot of strong material. Sheila E., of course, the juggernaut Purple Rain, but pretty much by the time he finished recording for that album and was on tour, Around the World in a Day was mostly finished. And at the same time, the Family was just being formed. So those tracks were in circulation. It's like, pretty heavy. Again, check out for a complete documentation of this era. By all means, check out Dwayne Tudall's book, The Purple Rain Sessions. Check that out for sure. And look for his upcoming book in 2021 that kind of continues with the Parade and Sign of the Times era, because there will be mention of the actual release of the Family's album and everything going on in before and after that as well. So, but yeah, like I said, sadly, this record only lasted one record, but I wore the grooves off of it. From the first single, Screams of Passion, just automatically just fell in love with that track, dug the video a lot, bought the album, and from the moment you dropped that needle on the record, you were on a journey. And like I said, it stands up to a lot of what Prince did. To me, I enjoyed it better than Around the World in a Day, to be honest. To me, with Around the World in a Day, there are tracks that I enjoy on it. Condition of the Heart is probably my most favorite track on that album. But to me, the appeal for Around the World in a Day were the B-sides. She's Always in My Hair, Hello, Even Girl, that was kind of a quirky track for me, but kind of over time I got into, maybe say like a couple of months after buying that 12-inch single for America, that I started enjoying that song more and more. So those three strong B-sides, the video for America. So that's my experience with Around the World in a Day. But that being said, if they did a super deluxe edition, if they were releasing that tomorrow, they've got my money. So, but at the time, me, 19 years old, back in 1985, I enjoyed that family album a lot more. I played it more than Around the World in a Day. And kind of as we started getting into 1986, I know then we started kind of hearing about this sort of, dissension. Because, like I said, Screams of Passion did relatively well. Not bad for a first single by a brand new group. It wasn't half bad. As far as the charts and things like that. Like I said, I love the track on first listen. But to me, like the subsequent singles from that, they just weren't taking off because there was no promotion behind it. And that was due to the fact that by this time, Prince was off in France filming Under the Cherry Moon. And he really didn't give the family the time and attention that a record label should give you, which, this is Paisley Park, the beginnings of his imprint label. And it really wasn't so much as Warner Brothers' job, but being is that they were actually signed with Prince, that he should have had them like opening for somebody or something, or booking them more television appearances or something. But since the focus was on Under the Cherry Moon at this point, they were kind of left on the back burner. So St. Paul, being impatient, got an offer he couldn't refuse from MCA Records and a little bit of cash. And so he decided to jump ship. And, that was a business move. It was nothing personal. I mean, they could have hung in there and waited. But, you had a hot album that was losing momentum quickly and no future, and the pay was sort of minuscule, so the minuscule pay for even just sitting around waiting, it was a bit much. So they broke up, and they got back together around 2003 for a benefit that Sheila E. was throwing. But it wasn't until late around 2007, 2008, 2009 that they decided to get back together, minus Jerome, and record new music. Prince not allowing them to use the name The Family any longer, they decided to become the group we now know as F Deluxe. And I got to see my other favorite band in Chicago 2013, and they put on a show. It's a great show. I have just about everything that they've recorded thus far. Their official album, Gaslight. There's a remix album where there's, of course, different remixes done on some of the tracks from Gaslight. There's also a live album that they have that's really great. Great additions to the band. They had Oliver Lieber on guitar as well as Jelly Bean on guitar, which meant they had another cat on drums that was just a powerhouse as a drummer. And I guess St. Paul still uses that cat for stuff that they do, or him and Eric Leeds use him for stuff. I'm not sure, but hopefully he should still be doing work, and hopefully hopefully we can see another F Deluxe album. I'm ready for that myself. But St. Paul, when he did jump ship, that first solo album is a classic. I hope MCA Records or whoever owns the masters to that, please re-release that on CD, vinyl because I bought the cassette, because back then CDs were a little pricey. Because we had sort of stupidly, we gave up vinyl. And it was like, cassettes or CD. But CDs were always pricey, so we always kind of leaned more towards the cassettes. But yeah, so now that album is out of print, like if you go to try to buy it, then people are charging ridiculous amounts of money for it. So whoever owns that master recording to that first album, please re-release it so we can have it back in our hands. I mean, I'm still holding on to my cassette. It's still playing well, but there's a couple of times the tape deck is threatening to eat it. So I got to get my hands on a CD or vinyl or something. I got some digital tracks, but not the greatest of quality, but it's all I've got for right now. But definitely. And the Family too. That's another one. It's out of print. I think I saw something. Rocket Pool. I'm going to have to check out this record store. They're in the UK, and they sell a lot of records, but they're really good at promoting stuff to the Prince community, or what I call the Prince musical singularity. They're really good at marketing to that demographic. So they managed to keep a lot of different things in stock. So I think you might be able to get maybe the Family on vinyl or CD. I've kept my original vinyl. There was a CD I managed to get for a halfway decent price. This is around 2003, 2004, maybe. But I think that was sort of like a kind of put together kind of a copy on further inspection. But I would love to have like an official CD. But so if, again, whoever has the ear of the estate, by all means, look into that. I'm sure at some point, because right now the main focus, obviously, for obvious reasons, is going to be on releasing Prince material. But I'm hoping probably within the next, say, 5 years or so, if they can get around to re-releasing a lot of the Paisley Park stuff, because a lot of that is out of print. And again, if you try to buy some of it somewhere, especially CDs, there's people out there that are really going to try to stick it to you. So, it would be nice, again, to have stuff that you can get from the store or purchase from the estate's website or purchase from Amazon, to where it's affordable. And again, once again, we can rebuild our collections or fill in some gaps. And like I said, replace some stuff that's been long out of print too. And again, people that want to take those deeper dives, definitely when this stuff starts to come out, definitely check it out. The Family, or it's, Jill Jones, or it's Madhouse. By all means, when that stuff gets re-released, check it out. Tony Lamond's, all that Paisley Park stuff. But definitely this Rocket Pool site, like I said, I'm going to check them out at some point. And like I said, I'm going to try to purchase a few things myself and just see what's going on with it. But I think they may have some CDs on the Family. So by all means, check it out. But you can, since they did put out stuff recently as F Deluxe, by all means, check out Gaslight. That is it's not the Family album part 2, but it is very funky, and it is very mature. And what I mean by mature, it's a very grown up album, not, explicit or anything like that grown up, but just kind of like, you can sit, chill with a glass of wine or something and just vibe off of this album. Or you could just drive to it, kick back and just absorb the sounds. And by all means, they don't really tour, say, like the way the Revolution tours. Most of the time, you would probably have to go check them out in Minneapolis. I was fortunate enough to check them out in Chicago in 2013. But, I mean, it's real musicians, real music by real musicians. So if you have an opportunity to check them out or check out St. Paul, whatever he's doing, check out Jelly Bean, whatever he's doing, by all means, check it out. But especially when that F Deluxe configuration gets together, check it out. Because, I mean, the new songs were great. The classic stuff is great. They do both in performance. So, by all means, check it out. But what's most important is, what do you think? So, is the Family your favorite band? Is it your other favorite band? Leave me a note in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And now we're going to move on to our Bite the Boots segment. And Bite the Boots is a segment that highlights a circulating bootleg or vault recording or video for consideration for an official release by the estate. And today's Bite the Boots selection is Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic 1988. All right, so some of you in the community already know what I'm talking about. Some of you are going, but wait, they already released an Ultimate Rave, and it had a Rave Into the Joy Fantastic album. It had a Rave Into the Joy Fantastic remix album, and it had a Rave Into the Year 2000 DVD. What's he talking about? Well, Fab listeners or Purple listeners, what I'm talking about is the album that Prince was working on in 1988 before he got the call to do the Batman soundtrack. And the history behind this was that coming off of the Lovesexy tour, it didn't make as much money as anticipated, and it really didn't boost the album sales of Lovesexy either. Compared to, say 1999 Purple Rain, Round the World in a Day, anything up until Sign of the Times, Lovesexy, I wouldn't call it a flop, but it just didn't sell as well as those classic albums. And depending on who you talk to, it's debatable of whether that was his last classic album. Now, it's a very personal favorite record of mine. More on that another day. But the long and short of it was that Warner Brothers basically told Prince, all right, why don't you just take a year off? We don't need another record from you for a while. Just kick back. But this is Prince we're talking about, and he's in constant recording mode. So basically, he had enough material to put together a brand new album. So it was kind of this thing of most of these songs, and I think he was still thinking about what would become Graffiti Bridge. But so I guess, he always had songs in circulation, which isn't unusual in itself, especially for him. But the long and short of it was he was just going to constantly keep recording, I guess, until Warner Brothers said, well, hey, now we need another album. Well, in the middle of all of this, that's when the call came to do Batman. So everybody knows that legend as well. So it's where Tim Burton, the director, had a couple of key scenes. And sometimes when you don't have, say, someone tapped to write the song for that scene, or if you don't already have a definitive song that may already exist for that scene and you haven't gotten around to the licensing or anything yet, you just play whatever, and it's kind of like a buffer, just so you can capture the moment in that scene or the vibe or the feeling in that scene until you get that official song put in there. So basically what Tim Burton was using was, 1999 or Baby I'm a Star or something for key scenes. And Jack Nicholson, a bit of a Prince fan, said, hey, why don't we just get Prince to do the soundtrack? And the rest is bat history. So, but basically, maybe a couple of the songs, like there was Vicky Waiting, which was originally titled Anna Waiting. Again, these are songs in circulation. Electric Chair was one that was definitely going to be included in the many configurations of this album, actually. So he was kind of playing around with the sequencing of it. Some of the songs actually ended up in Graffiti Bridge, like Still Would Stand All Time, Elephants and Flowers. Some of the tracks have been performed in concert, like If I Had a Harem, that went all the way back to Love Sexy. Let's see, Melody Cool is another one. So basically between October 27th of 1988 and January of 1989, he had about 3 sequences for this album, which means that the order of songs or the type of songs that go onto an album, that's what's called sequencing an album. So there's songs that were kind of like left in, there's songs that were taken out. Let's see. The final configuration actually included Moonbeam Levels. Now, here's an interesting question. Was it Moonbeam Levels as we now hear it, which, had been sitting in the vault and had been released on the Prince Forever compilation? Or is this sort of like an updated 1989 version? Did he kind of take that original track and maybe do some more overdubs or remix it somehow? That would be an interesting question. And if so, like I said, there's basically, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's basically like 5 or 6 songs that are pretty much consistent with each sequence that was planned for this album, which leaves about maybe another half dozen or so that by the third configuration didn't make the cut. So I think you can put together maybe, I don't know how long the songs are in each configuration, but I'm guessing you can probably put together a single CD, even with, say like if you just did the final configuration, which is about 9 songs, and then the half or dozen so from the other 2 configurations that didn't make the final cut as like kind of bonus tracks, or if you could put it together as one long CD. So I don't know, let's see, it's 9, maybe another half dozen. That's about 15 tracks. So I don't know, maybe you could fit that all on one single CD. That's possible. Or if there's the double CD, or if there's even more songs from that era, I believe. Now, again, we're kind of probably stepping on the toes of a possible Graffiti Bridge Super Deluxe. But, there are songs that originated from these sessions. Like, again, there's Melody Cool that ended up on Graffiti Bridge. There's Elephants and Flowers. Still Would Stand All Time, even though that was consistent on all 3 configurations for this. But again, is it a different mix of it that you can include for this compilation, saving the official Still Would Stand All Time for Graffiti Bridge? I don't know, but this was one that I'd always been slightly fascinated with because it would have begged the question if Prince did not get the Batman gig, what would this album, what would it have done? I don't know. I'm trying to imagine the sequences. The final sequence did have Pink Cashmere, so that would have been a big hit, obviously. It was officially released in 1993. It did okay on the charts, but then there was no promotion or anything like that. But to me, that was always a beautiful song. And it was a song I kind of mistook as being recorded during the Sign of the Times era for some weird reason. But definitely, had that been released in 1989, I think that would have been a really big, more so of a pop hit. I mean, it still would have done well on the R&B charts too, but Rave to the Joy Fantastic. So I think that particular mix survived onto the 1999 version of Rave to the Joy Fantastic. That, I don't know. I think that would have been pretty big too. I know that in interviews he said it sounded too close to Kiss, which was why it didn't see the light of day in 1989 or 1990 at all. But to me, I don't know. There's a lot of people that really hate on Bat Dance. I love Bat Dance, but yeah, to me, yeah, I don't know. I think he would have been able to pull out another big hit with that. Electric Chair, that was strong. God is Alive, I was listening to that recently, and it's kind of really the first time I really had a chance to sit down and pay attention. Well, actually driving, but I was really able to finally absorb that song. It was kind of like it's one of those I kind of took for granted for a long time. Like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's great. Oh, yeah, I've heard it live. Yeah, it's great. But really listening to it, I was like, man, that is a great track. So this is one I would do, one track, whether it pops up in a, my suggestion for a compilation for this week, or if it ends up on any compilation, or if it ends up on somebody's, not somebody's, but if it ends up on, I don't know, whether it's maybe could you put it on a Love Sexy Super Deluxe? It's a possibility. Yeah, so I mean, it would either that, a Love Sexy Super Deluxe, Graffiti Bridge Super Deluxe. I don't know, but I would love to hear an officially released version. Or, I have an idea, but I'm going to save that for a future Bite the Boot segment. But I have an idea where this song could go if this one doesn't see the light of day. But yeah, I mean, and Elephants and Flowers, that's my favorite, one of my favorite songs from Graffiti Bridge. But I don't think that would end up here. I think they would base it off of the final January 1989 configuration. If you guys aren't aware of it already, check out this website called princevault.com. It's got information on all things officially released and unreleased. That's where I kind of ended up doing my research for this piece, is from princevault.com. But by all means, check it out. And of course, it's good to have many sources, but again, like Dwayne Tudall and Per Nielsen, they both used to work for, or they both worked on Uptown Magazine, which was a really good fanzine, and they had a lot of great articles and a lot of great information and stuff. Per Nielsen used to have this book called The Vault, which that and Uptown Magazine, Prince managed to put a stop to, I guess. But, Dwayne still carrying the torch and bringing us great information as well. So that first volume of Purple Rain Sessions, check that out. It's a lot of great people with a lot of great knowledge. So things that I don't know, like I said, I kind of go online and research or pull out certain books and research as well. So, but this, I would think if the estate were to release this as a possible future compilation, I think they would more so base it on the final configuration. But again, I don't know, if Electric Chair is a slightly different mix, it would have to be that, because Warner Brothers would still own the rights to the Batman material even after 2021. So I don't know. I mean, there's 3 different configurations. Like I said, if you go on princevault.com and check out the history behind this album that never saw the light of day, then you'll see a lot of, like I said, 3 different configurations. And I think there's room for them all. There's a lot of unreleased stuff that didn't end up on other albums that would work. Like I said, every time I look at this configuration, I'm like fascinated and like, oh, this song, that song. So that's my recommendation, is a Rave Into the Joy Fantastic 1988. And again, what's most important is, what do you guys think? Is this something you would like to see the estate release at some point? Or is there another one? I tried to research a lot of different unreleased albums. There's more live stuff to me, but then Prince's Vault, there's so many different songs, so I think even some of the legendary unreleased albums, I think there's so much material you can just put out, and if you sequence the songs the right way, you could just really come out with great Prince albums to come. You can probably, I don't know, maybe more so than Hendrix, I would say. You could come out with new stuff that would become classics on their own, in real time, in present time with that. So anyway, but like I said, again, what's most important is, what do you guys think about the possibility of a Rave Into the Joy Fantastic based off of the 1988 or 1989 configurations, or one big huge compilation? Jump in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And that is going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. And again, this week I will be officially working on my second podcast show, which will be the Amari Funk Soloist Hour. So I'll be hard at work coming up with the theme song. Already got the show notes put together for it, but I got to come up with the in-show graphics and promotion. So if I don't officially record it this week, it will definitely be recorded next week. And of course, I will always keep you up to date on the release of that. And also to go to my website, AmariCommunications.com, and see what all kind of stuff I'm working on. Also to buy some merchandise, buy a t-shirt, buy a mug. I have Amari Purple Talk merchandise available, and there's few other designs as well that I hope you guys would like and purchase. And until next week, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Let's all have love for one another. Be peaceful. Be wild. Don't be too wild out there. Stuff is wild enough. But don't forget to live and enjoy life. And as always, keep it purple and on the one.